Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Small Town Big Biz. Today, I am joined by the lovely Brant Burgiss from Thistle, Meadow Winery. Welcome.
Thank you, Jessica. It's great to be here.
Do you like being called the lovely Brant?
Well, that did cause a little consternation, but I guess that's okay.
That's so funny. Well, I would love for you to tell the listeners about you and your story and your business.
Well, it's partly my story, but mostly it's my family story. The Thistle Meadow Winery began selling wine legally a little over 20 years ago. And I say legally with tongue-in-cheek because that's an homage to my father. My father was Tom Burgiss, retired pharmacist who was looking for something to do in his spare time, and suddenly, somewhere out on the blue, he discovered this magic thing, a hobby called home winemaking.
Oh, how fun.
And it kind of just took over and became this monster that would not go away. And, so I have that hobby to thank for my current employment. But Dad started the winery back in 2001 as he was getting out of pharmacy and doing drugs for a living.
Yeah. He went from doing drugs to getting people drunk.
Well, obviously we don't want to do that or we'll lose our license, but you understand, we enjoy making people happy.
Yes, but adding a little pep to the step, right?
We do. So as I said, we're just a small family-owned mountaintop winery. We make about 20 different kinds of wines. So regardless of whether you like a dry wine or a sweet wine, or you like big reds like Cabernet, or you like a Chardonnay, I mean, we've got that all, but also fruit wines, too, that are very sweet and popular and sell very well here in the sweet tea belt of North Carolina.
Yes. If I'm going to drink wine, it's going to be something sweet because I like me some sweet tea. But I don't, it just kind of depends. It kind of depends. My mom loves wine. My mom is like a wine connoisseur, So, yes, I love it.
Well, everybody can be, right?
Everybody, yes.
And that's the number one fear that a lot of folks may have when they first come into a winery. Someone has cajoled them or they've pulled them and made them come to a winery to do a wine tasting, and they're so scared that they're not going to do it right. And I keep telling them it's no big deal.
Right.
Because you're the only one who in the end is going to decide whether you like a wine or not. And I'm not going to tell you what wine you should like. That's not my place, or at least that's my philosophy.
Yeah.
I want to help you find the wine that you like and can embrace.
That is interesting that people have like a fear around that. But I get it. I totally get it.
It can be very intimidating because, you think about your experiences in the grocery store and you've planned this wonderful meal for you and your spouse and you want to do everything right. And now that you've got your entree figured out and your vegetables and you're thinking, glass of wine. Well, that would be great. And then now you walk down this aisle and you've got hundreds, thousands of choices. It's easy to be intimidated if you're not familiar. And it's so easy, it's like falling off a log. You just have to taste until you find something you like.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of a wine tasting because you're not investing, it's not like you're buying a whole bottle of something to try for the first time, worrying if it's going to be good or not. The tasting is just that. You're having a sip, maybe two or three, and then you're moving on to the next wine. So what could be better than that?
That is so fun.
My father's philosophy was, how many people do you know who buy a pair of shoes without trying them on first? Yeah. So that's just it.
Yes.
You want to try the wine before I'm going to ask you to buy something.
Oh, my gosh. I love that so much. So what brought you into the business?
I think it was more from a technical aspect. When Dad discovered the hobby of home winemaking, of course, what does a home hobbyist need? He needs supplies. He needs grape juice of some sort. He needs vessels to perform the fermentation in. He needs bottles to put them in. He needs corks to close the bottles. So where does he get them? And the answer in 1997, 1998, at least here in the hills of North Carolina, the answer was there's no place nearby. So that's when he decided to, okay, I've done this before. I've owned drugstores. I know how wholesale and retail works. So he opened a business called grapestompers.com to become a dealer so that he could get the supplies for himself. This was just Tom being greedy. I need the supplies for myself.
Oh, my gosh.
But also, Dad was like a Pied Piper, someone who could walk the walk and just loved telling people, showing people, teaching people how to make wine the right way. And all along the while, he's making batches after batches after batches so that people could try it and see for themselves. You know, this is a hobby I could see myself investing into, because for $100 worth of equipment, now this is back then.
Yeah.
$100 worth of equipment and about $30 worth of juice, I can make 30 bottles of wine.
Wow.
And if you did the math, right, and figured out what would be your true cost per bottle just for that first batch, it would still rival some of the less expensive wines you could find on the shelf. So even if you made a half-hearted and half-good attempt at making wine and were successful at it, well, you can use the equipment over and over and over. You just have to get new juice and new corks. So, hey, that's a wonderful way to save money.
I love how innovative he was to even come up with a website.
Well, that was where I came in,
Okay.
was to make the website, because you have to understand, this is back in the late 90s. Most everything was still dial-up.
Yeah, especially here.
Well, and I had been working for the YMCA for a number of years at this point, and had been making by hand, because at this point there was no HTML editors.
No.
So I was typing in HTML code by hand, creating this online catalog, creating this website. And at that time, there were we were one of 5 what I would call national dealers who were selling winemaking supplies online. So right out of the gate, we were very, very busy, and Dad had to build a warehouse so that we could do all the shipping.
Wow.
Well, you can imagine after about 2 or 3 years of that and making samples of batches of wines, so we could either recommend on the newsletter, hey, you need to get this Sauvignon Blanc because it's really, really good, or you need to get this Shiraz, whatever. Well, can you imagine how much wine we had left over after all that time?
Right.
And people would come after reading our newsletters that we did online. We had people driving in from Houston, Texas, to buy these supplies because they couldn't find them anywhere else. And it was really kind of funny how someone from a big city would come all the way to small town North Carolina in the mountains, and not surrounded by anything but Christmas trees and cattle,
especially
and find
then.
something that it was crazy.
Like, you were doing newsletters online in the early 2000s, late 90s.
Oh, yes. We were sending, I formatted it in text only so that everybody could read it.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I really am, because I can't get people to do that now. You know? I'm like, listen, this is like, you need to do this.
I wrote nearly 300 issues, and every issue was 4 pages. We would always have a specials page that said, what's on sale this month. But we'd also have, Dad would have his article where he would just write about the philosophy of wine and winemaking, and then I would give the technical lesson and say, this is how you solve a stuck fermentation. And so obviously my training began along with Dad in parallel, and as he grew the business, even though I was not living up here with him, I was consulting with him on the phone all the time, and I was driving up here, staying 1-2 nights a week just to keep everything up and going. So I did that for a number of years, even when I was living down below the mountain.
That is so much fun. I don't know. I think it's so cool that he and you were doing the things that nobody else was doing at the time. Even here, especially here, but
especially
really
here.
anywhere,
That's
you
right.
know.
Well, but I don't know. What do you do with a frustrated mountain man who's entrepreneurial and likes to drink a little bit?
Yeah.
Well, there's this thing called moonshine, and, that's very popular in these parts.
Yeah.
This is just, a less alcoholic way of making moonshine.
That is the best thing I've ever heard. What do you do with a mountain man who's entrepreneurial and likes to drink? I love it. I mean, it's funny because even now, like my business, I live here. I started it out of my, my corner of my living room in our old house, but it's a national brand. And now, 2021, people are like, how did you do that from Ashe County, from West Jefferson, from whatever? And I'm like, you just do it. You find a way.
Well, you have a vision.
Yes.
You know what you want to accomplish. Will they come? We didn't know that either when we built the website. Would people come and buy from us?
Yeah. What was really cool back then, too, is it was a build it and they will come kind of scenario. Now it's so much harder, because there's so many websites, right? And there's so much competition.
Well, and speaking of which, and that's the reason why GrapeStompers.com, the winemaking supply side of our businesses that are in Laurel Springs, no longer exists.
I was going to ask if
Amazon
they did.
put us out of business. They started their own line of winemaking equipment, and of course, from a price standpoint, we couldn't compete.
Yeah.
Much less on the shipping, the freight end of it.
Right.
Because when you're selling a box of concentrated grape juice from which you would make a batch of wine, and it weighs 50 pounds, can you imagine how much that costs to ship?
Yeah.
Even one state away. Well, there was no way that we can compete with Amazon with the deals that they could get from the national freight carriers. So I think the point was finally made and driven home when I would be spending at least an hour, maybe two, on the phone every day helping people who were not our customers, helping them solve their winemaking problems.
Oh, gotcha.
And my wife said, Brant, why are you doing this? Why are you helping? I said, well, I like to help people. But she said, but they're not paying you. They're not buying your product. What do you?
Yeah.
And that really, oh my gosh, what a sinking moment that was.
Yeah.
And so we had to make a decision. What are we going to do? The winery was already up and going and doing fine at this point. Why was I sharing my time between Grape Stompers and the Thistle Meadow Winery when it was obvious that I needed to stick and concentrate more on the winery?
Right.
And so we ended grapestompers.com at the end of December of 18, and we haven't looked back.
Okay.
But that lets me put more of my focus on the winery, and I think in the end that was the absolute correct decision.
Oh, for sure. Anytime you're splitting your focus, it's a problem. And I tell people that all the time. Like, let's not build 4 businesses. We need one, So besides the winery, what else do you have going on out there? You have an event space?
We do. So obviously we host parties, weddings, that sort of thing. We don't claim to be the Taj Mahal of Laurel Springs. What we have is very rustic, and people just enjoy it for that sake because it's something that's a little bit different. We have 2 lush, wonderful green meadows, and as long as it doesn't rain too much before your event, everything can be held outside. And, of course, we have the dance barn that's there on the property as well, which allows you to do something inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was telling Brant before we started recording, I actually got married out there. So it's fun to have you here because I didn't even know about that. What happened, again, which is we're going to get to your problem here in a second.
Yes.
But what happened was I was actually going to get married at the Downton Hall. Yes, that. And a friend of mine decided she wanted to get married there, and she was getting married before me, and I am not about to get married the same place my friend did.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And so I'm like looking for a place. I didn't want to use the same places everybody uses because that's my personality. I wanted to be different. And my husband's a farmer, and we like the Western. I wore cowboy boots at my wedding, that kind of thing. And we found this barn, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so we got married outside and had the reception in the barn. So
were you the ones that had the horses in the barn too?
We did not have horses in the barn.
There was one occasion where the bride and groom rode their 2 horses into the barn.
No.
Yes, said their vows, and then walked out.
Oh, that is hysterical. We did not, because I don't ride horses. My husband does, but I do not.
I just had to ask.
Yeah, that wasn't me. But it's just fun, because I didn't even know about y'all until that. And that brings us to what we want to talk about today. And that is, go ahead and explain kind of we won't call it a problem, but kind of the scenario.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. The challenge is how to make people aware that our winery exists when this is such a very popular tourist destination. I want to be kind of in the top 3 things that they want to do when they're here in this area. I want them to want to come to Thistle Meadow Winery. It's no secret when we quiz the folks who walk through our doors every day, where are you from? Why are you here? 95% of the people are tourists.
Of course, yeah.
And what could be better than a mini vacay at a winery and do a wine tasting? But how did they find out about us? And a lot of them didn't even think about looking for us until they got here. And luckily for me and for them, they get on their favorite search engine. More likely than not, it's Google.
Yeah.
And wineries near me, find. So thank goodness we're the only winery within a 2-county region. So we kind of pretty much automatically pop up. But and I'm very thankful that our reviews are very high. Both in Google and Yelp and everywhere else you can do it. But I would like to be a little more on the forefront of people's minds that, yes, I'm going to the northwest mountain region of North Carolina. and I know I want to go to a winery. I want them to plan a little bit more in advance.
Gotcha. Okay. So there's a couple ideas I have.
Okay.
One is, actually, multiple of the ideas I'm going to talk about are pay-to-play scenarios, right? And that is, it is not expensive to create a Google ad that is going to target people as they search for, because if they're planning, they may be planning for like things to do. They're not necessarily searching for wineries. So you could target the keywords, things to do in Ashe County, things to do in Allegheny, things to do in Sparta, West Jefferson, these keywords for pretty inexpensively, and be the first thing that pops up. Like Thistle, I cannot say that fast. Thistle Meadow Winery. Oh my gosh.
It's a bit of a tongue twister.
There was somebody else I interviewed from Triple Peaks Hemp, and it was the same thing. I was like, I have to slow my words down. But you could be the first search result for a pretty low cost. Google ads are not very expensive. So you know how when you Google something, there's always an ad at the top?
Yes. Oh, yes.
You could be that ad. And so, but yes, you want to be that ad for like wineries. But if you're already being found organically, I wouldn't waste your money on that. It would more be things to do in
So the interesting part that I didn't reveal about my past, at least in this interview up to this point, you knew that I made websites, but you didn't know that I owned a website design company for 10 years.
So did I. So, not for 10.
And I can't tell you how many Google AdWords campaigns that I have been involved in for my customers. Isn't it funny how the cobbler's son has no shoes?
Yes. Exactly.
Why is that?
I don't know.
So yes, I know about Google AdWords, but why haven't I considered it? And it's probably because I'm thinking about the wrong keywords.
Right. And that's what a lot of people get stuck on is they want to be found for this, but if you're wanting them to plan it ahead of time, they may not even know there is a winery. And so that's not what they're searching.
And that's no ding against them.
Right. No, yeah. And that's not what they're searching. They just want to know, we're going to West Jefferson, we're going to Boone, we're going to whatever. What is there to do? So if you can be that thing where they're searching for things to do, because trust me, there's not a lot on that list, If you can be that thing, then they could absolutely click that. And, if you're looking at, let's say, $1 to $2 per click, but you're selling how much wine,
I know
right?
how much a customer brings to me on average when they walk through the door. I just know that through metrics of 20 years.
That's good. I'm a data person. I'm a metrics person. Yeah. We could nerd out about that all day. But yeah, I mean, when you look at how much you're spending, it's not going to be that much. They're very inexpensive. Now, I feel like they've gotten better because of the competition with Facebook and Instagram ads and YouTube ads and all the things along with that.
Yes.
And that's where I want to go next is Facebook ads. So again, with a pay-to-play scenario, Facebook is great, but it's gotten harder to be found organically. It just has. Yes, we can search for wineries. Yes, but it's not as good as Google. So,
Right.
The really cool part about Facebook is you can, again, with the targeting, you can target people who are searching for things in certain areas and people who are currently here or who have been here because their phone tells Facebook that they're in this location.
Right.
Yeah. So you can say, I want to show this to people who are in this area right now. And so as they're scrolling Facebook at night after they've been out hiking or on the river, they're going to get an ad for your winery because Facebook then knows that they are in the general area that you're trying to target.
Well, I knew on some level Facebook was kind of creepy because I can be
Facebook's
talking with
very creepy.
a family member about an issue, and the next thing I know is I see an ad pop up on my phone and Facebook. Was it listening to me?
It is listening, actually.
That's scary. That's really scary.
It is really scary. And Facebook will tell you all day long they don't do that, but they totally do. And it's not them. It's Siri. I don't want to say it too loud because she'll talk to me. But it's her, and then she feeds data to Facebook. So it's not Facebook, and that's how they get around it. That's really what it comes down to.
The end around. Okay.
Yes. And then if you search for things on the same Wi-Fi network, so like my sister the other day was at my house, and she just got a new car. And she went on her insurance. I think she goes through Geico for insurance, which I've literally never met anybody that actually has Geico insurance. But my sister does. And that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so she's on there trying to update her car information.
Right.
And she was like, I wonder if I can get this cheaper somewhere else. I started getting ads for Liberty Mutual and all of these auto insurance because she was searching auto insurance on her phone on my Wi-Fi. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's very creepy, actually. My husband will search for things. Like he's a building inspector here locally. And so I will get contractor's license things, even though he's not searching for contractor's license, but I guess the keywords he's searching for make them think that. So Facebook ads are a little creepy, but it's actually kind of fun from a marketing perspective to know that, like, if people are in this radius, they're probably going to see an ad that I put out there. One of my favorite things is when I travel, because it doesn't happen a lot around here because people don't even know you can do that, But when I travel, I've been to San Diego, and like I land and all my ads are immediately all like San Diego specific things, like come to the San Diego Zoo, so come to this, come to that, because they're targeting a location. And you can target based on people who don't live there, people who do live there, people who are visiting, people who visited before. Now,
really?
Yes.
I've done some targeted ads for a community theater group that I'm in locally, but I don't remember seeing those options where I can target visitors who happen to be here now.
Yeah, it's in there.
Oh, interesting.
It's definitely, one of the more complex ways to run ads for sure.
But that meets my criteria right off the
it
bat
does,
because I know who my customers are,
exactly.
where they come from.
Exactly. And it's really cool. I've ran ads for local companies where when I was doing that, I'm not doing any management of that anymore, but where it's so fun because it's like they love that, like they know their audience is tourists, right?
Yes.
And they know that it's people who have probably been here before, but maybe don't live here. And so we've targeted specifically those people and given them like a coupon or, a buy one, get one free scenario to get them back in the door.
Right. And see, this is where I have to be very, very careful being in the field that I am. I wish I could offer discounts on wine and things like that.
I knew there was rules around that,
There are very, very strict rules regarding North Carolina alcoholic beverages and its control. We're not allowed to do anything like that unless we offer the same discount to everybody who walks through my door or who comes within the sound of my voice for a particular time frame.
Gotcha.
So I can't, they call it the happy hour law. They did away with the happy hour. So no longer can any place in North Carolina, be they brewery, bar, winery, whatever, you can't have, highballs for $1 from 5 to 6 p.m. on Thursday. You can't do that.
Oh,
now you can say we'll offer a special, but it has to be all day to all genre.
But could you get away with it if it wasn't an alcoholic thing that they got?
Yes. Now,
okay.
And that's where the difference is.
Yeah.
On souvenirs, I can offer 10% off to all veterans. I can do that all day long.
So you could partner it. So it could be like buy 3 bottles of wine or whatever and get this, like, you can't do that.
No,
okay.
I can't. I cannot
Gotcha.
tie a discount to a purchase of an alcoholic beverage.
I see.
That's
so
illegal.
it has to be a discount on something else.
On something else.
And not at all related.
Totally uninvolving the wine.
Okay. Right. And the cool thing is, I feel like you can you do like punch cards or anything like that?
So we do have a loyalty program.
Okay.
Yes. So, and I can say legally, I'm offering this to everybody. Typically, I'll give you an example of one discount that we do all over the place.
Yeah.
And if you buy a case of wine, I'm going to give you your tasting will be free, and I'm going to give you 10% off the price of the wines. I can do that because I do that every day to everybody.
Because
anybody
everybody
who walks
could
in
get
the
it.
door who is legally able to purchase alcohol. They're over 21. They're not inebriated. They've not been overserved.
Yeah.
They have to meet all this criteria. But for those people who only buy 1 bottle at a time, they're never going to reach that discount. But I have the loyalty card.
Okay.
So every time you buy 1 bottle of wine at regular price, I punch the card. And I'm not just punching it with a regular punch that anybody can buy at the 5 and 10. We're talking it's a very specific shape of a punch, so I know which ones are authentic and which ones are not. But
do people try and pass off inauthentic?
People do try and yes, they do.
Oh,
yes,
goodness.
They do.
Feels like a far reach,
But people will do anything
I believe
for
it.
a deal.
I believe it.
They could get their children to lie for them. I've seen all sorts of things. But so once you get a certain number of punches, then you can turn the card in, and on your next purchase, you can get % off.
Can you get double punches? Can certain people get double punches?
No. If you buy 2 bottles of wine, I will punch your card twice.
I'm trying to think of like a good incentive, right? To offer people. And it may just be they don't need an incentive because you are more of like a destination and a thing that people just want to do.
Well, and this is the wonderful reward of having the people walk through the door is they'll come in and they'll say, yes, this is a gorgeous place. It's really wonderful. It's very rural. I like the farm setting. I like everything about it. What I can't understand is why your wine is so much better than everybody else's.
Right.
And I said, well, wine is a very subjective beverage. Depending upon with whom you're drinking, where you are, what you're listening to, the family you're with, the experience that you're having at the tasting bar, all that ties into what I call the wrapped up experience.
Gotcha.
So it's not just, well, yes, we do make very decent tasting wine, but we wouldn't be in the business if we didn't.
Yeah.
So we provide something else beyond that, and we try and connect with our customers.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I don't even think you need anything to incentivize them. Just showing up.
I think if they just knew we were there.
Yeah.
And then once they knew we were there, any prudent person is going to look us up.
Yes.
And then they're going to see the reviews. They're going to see the comments from the people who have visited us. I think it would be a slam dunk. I just got to get their attention.
Yeah. I really think those two things can really help you with that because, like I say, targeting Facebook ads to people who are like coming in but don't live here, I mean, that's massive, Well,
and I do something, too, that's a little more organic, and that is I have a ruled piece of paper there at the checkout stand. Hey, if you want to join our email list, sign your name right there. And I've got a constant contact account. Right now we have just over 1,000 subscribers.
Awesome.
Which is not a lot, but, for me, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
What's rewarding to me is whenever I send out a message to the entire population of Thistle Meadow Winery aficionados, it's very rare that someone unsubscribes.
Right. That's awesome.
So
My
that's telling me that I'm not beating them to death with emails. If I send one email per month, that's a lot for me. I try to only contact them when I've got something really interesting going on, or I've got a new wine that I want to announce, a new state that we're shipping to, whatever it is.
That's awesome, and I really think you can utilize that to get people back. And so like really focusing on, which it sounds like you are, like getting people on the list once they're there.
And remember I was telling you earlier, Jessica, about the number of people who come see us while they're on vacation.
Yeah.
Typically, if they like an area, they'll keep coming back, and they'll rent the same cabin every year, and we've almost become part of people's family reunions.
I love it.
They come back, well, we're here again this year.
Yeah.
We were in Ohio, and,
I think I told you my aunt wants to go every single time she comes, you know, and she loves it, I think, so an organic other option or other thing I had on my head, which you probably do a lot of now.
What's that?
Is getting in touch with the Airbnb owners and the rental companies to make sure you're in their like binders and things to do that are there.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. And
realtors,
for someone who used to operate a bed and breakfast, I should have known that.
Again, the cobbler's son, right?
That's it.
So it really is. I always say there's a phrase or a quote that's you can't read the label from inside the jar or bottle in your case.
Right.
You're too close to it. Like you know what I mean? And you need somebody outside to be like, this would be a good option for you because they can read the label, So
what do you think is my best first method of contact with these owners of Airbnbs? Do I send them a physical letter? Do I contact them via email? Do I call them on the phone? What do you think would be the most receptive means of communication?
I think contact them on Airbnb. So there is a messenger availability on Airbnb.
I did not know that.
And they're very attentive because they want to keep their ratings high.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, same way for me when someone sends me a Facebook message, I know I'm being graded.
Yes, you are being graded.
Lickety-split. Yeah.
Yes. My grade on Facebook
Yes, we're
Messenger.
open this weekend. Yes, we have horse stomp red in stock. Yes, come on.
So fun fact, you can actually set up an automated message that will count towards your grade on Facebook. So we do not answer my Facebook messages on my business page because it's a dark hole and you do not want to go in it because I get spam messages constantly or people who find me on YouTube and are like wanting to message me on Facebook. So we just don't answer them. But I have an automated canned response that's like, hey, we don't answer messages here. Here's our email address. But so if you go and you message me, it's like response time, less than a minute. It's just because I have an automation set up. Okay. And you can do that straight in Facebook settings. So you could say, hey, thanks so much for messaging me. We'll get back to you in 24 hours or whatever. And that way it gives you a little freedom to not feel like you have to like, stop everything you're doing and answer a Facebook message, But yeah, you should be able to message on Airbnb. That's probably what I would do is just pull up the app like you were going to book something and find and message there. But if you can't, then maybe, if you don't get response or whatever, then maybe figure out who the owner is and send them an email. An email probably would be
in my case, in the small communities where you and I are used to living, we probably know the owners.
Exactly. Yeah. Most of the time, for sure. So like getting the Airbnbs are going to be your best bet because they've got a book. They've got a book that's like, here's things to do. Here's restaurants. Here's this. Here's that.
Well, so is there a similar function on Vrbo?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
there
yes.
is? Okay, so when you say Airbnb, I should also be thinking VRBO as well.
And any kind of short-term rental company that doesn't go
Four
through.
Seasons here in West Jefferson. Okay.
Yes, that doesn't go through like Vrbo or Airbnb. Those are great options. Okay. And I think, too, you could also do it with hotels, with anything, right? It's just a matter of like figuring out what the procedure is. And with a hotel, you'd probably just walk in. Be like, hey, here's what I want to do, because their whole goal is to make their guest have a great time, so they come back and they leave them a good review, and so that's a good thing. Like they're totally going to be like, yeah, absolutely.
So what I'm learning from you is nothing is really rocket science. It's just being aware and knowing and not being afraid to use those channels of communications that I've just ignored for the last 5 years.
Exactly. And a lot of people, especially locally, social media is a thing that they're using, but they're not using it to the best of the capabilities out there, right? Facebook wants you to spend money. If you want your Facebook page to go up, run some ads for Facebook. Your likes will go up, everything will go up because Facebook wants you to do that. And so it's really like a double-pronged strategy because it's going to help you organically as well, And you could even target people who'd been to your location. So you can upload your email list, target people who are on your email list, like you can do that, and give them an ad to remind them to come back.
Really?
Yes. Facebook ads are... Okay, so I will tell you, Facebook ads are one of my favorite things ever, but I've spent the last 3 days fighting with them, so don't think I always get along, because Laura can attest to it. I was about to pull my hair out over these Facebook ads, but they're amazing when they work and when you can use them in the way that...
I love that caveat, when they work.
When they work. And, well, what's happening right now is iOS 14 with the Apple phones came out with this feature where you can say, don't track me. So back to what I was saying. Most people are not going to turn it on because most people actually do enjoy the fact that they're tracked. They don't realize it, but they're served ads that they want to see. And so most people are not going to turn it on. They're going to have to know where to go to turn the setting on and off, But because of this new thing, the way Facebook has to target people, they have to kind of go around the rule. Gotcha. And so we had to set up, as an advertiser on Facebook, you have to set up some different things.
But now you're living in the iOS, the Apple world, and see, I'm more of a open source guy, Google guy. So.
But this is a Facebook thing.
That's a Facebook thing.
Facebook had to change the entire way they did ads because of an Apple update. Because most of the world does, not most, I guess it's half and half probably, operates on Apple. And so they had to change so much stuff. And I've literally been fighting with them for 3 days. But I got them to work last night, and now I'm back happy with them again. So, I mean, your possibilities are endless. You could totally target people who had been at your location or in a vicinity.
Yes.
And then get them to sign up for your email list digitally. So then they're on the email list. Then they're going to get the ads from the email list. And then,
Right. No, that's a great
I love a good,
idea.
cyclical way to get people.
It does.
It does. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I know you already work with both chambers. That's always a great option. But really just getting the word in front of the right people, like the Airbnb owners. That's really going to be your best bet.
Well, Jessica, thank you. Thank you.
Yay!
I love being
glad.
schooled. This is fun.
I love to be schooled too, and I also love to do the schooling, so it's fun for me. So tell everybody listening how they can find you. Is it your Facebook page, your website? Which is the best?
Well, the easiest way to just say it is the website URL. It's just thistlemeadowwinery.com.
Perfect.
Thistle is like the Thistle, like the Scottish flower. That's the national flower. And meadow is where the cows graze, right?
And winery is where the wine is grown.
Connotates wine. So if they just go to thistlemeadowwinery.com, they can find us on our Facebook page there. They can find all the wines that we have in stock. The events that are happening, food trucks, musicians, whatever, what have you. So
I love it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me, Jessica. I really appreciate it.